Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Living in 2020 felt a lot like we were moving from one crisis to another. In 2024, those crises have started overlapping each other. It feels never-ending. There's many reasons why this is. Globalization and the instantaneous nature of social media are, for example, two key drivers in making it feel like major disruptive events that are happening halfway around the world are occurring right on our doorsteps. It's very easy to see how consumers can feel overwhelmed and disheartened, their confidence lowered. This is the world consumers are living in, and this is the world that brands are living in too. Market researchers play a key role in tracking both consumers and brands, and this is the backdrop to what we'll be discussing today. I'm your host, Michael Howard, and this is Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. Today, I'm joined by Benoit Tranzer, the Global Service Line Leader for Brand Health Tracking at Ipsos. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Benoit.
You're welcome, Michael. Really pleased and honored to be with you today.
And likewise. So, Benoit, you're working for one of the largest market research organizations in the world and lead a very important arm of the business. Do you mind telling us a bit about your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start by my journey in a few words. I used to say that I am a pure product of the market research industry. I'm having a 30 plus years experience now, mainly in three companies. I started in a local French market research company called BVA, still existing today. And I mainly spent the rest of my professional time in Ipsos and Kantar Milwauborn. My areas of expertise are really focused on brand, communication, and media. I was really fortunate. I had many opportunities to share my experience and knowledge, expertise, being lecturer in business school and speaker, like in Sciences Politiques in Paris or HEC. I'm also had the opportunities to be members of different juries. I'm still member of the FE jury, with rewarding the best brand activating in different markets and specifically in France. In terms of roles, since now a decade, I'm more focusing on global roles like the one I'm having currently in Ipsos. Just to give you a few words on these activity in Ipsos. So brand tracking is one of the largest business in Ipsos. We are operating in 90 markets, and we have dedicated teams in more than 50 markets around the globe. We run, let's say, 1,500-ish tracking, but mainly international, multi-markets. And we work for clients in any kind of sectors, of course, FMCG, retail, services, tourism, automotive, and tech sector as well. That's for me.
Awesome. So I don't know if some may have missed it there, but you're a juror on the FEs. And yeah. The FEs, I'm assuming most people will know, but marketing effectiveness, and really good to hear that you're doing that alongside your brand tracking perspective, because marketing is nothing if it's not effective. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm continuing. I started 10 years ago and still continuing because you have really fresh examples on brands who really succeeded on activating and that's really a great opportunity.
For sure. So to the market research and insight professionals listening into this today, what's the most significant thing that you're going to leave with them?
Okay, let's say that my main message to this insight community would be that despite how chaotic is the world today, and you mentioned that in your intro, and despite what technology challenges are today and will be in the near future, their role will continue to be very, very crucial for a few reasons. First, brands still need to track how consumers are choosing them and interacting with them. and marketers will need to get strong guidance, good understanding of the consumer realities and the new realities for the consumers. So if we try to capture our mission today and in the following years, for the researchers, I would say that our mission will be to really empower brands and marketing decision makers to understand how to strengthen their brands, of course, in a competitive environment, by providing really strong insights across markets and time. So that's the mission. Will be very, very important. Probably we will deliver a little bit less outputs and more outcomes with impact. That's probably one of the evolution I see.
Very cool. So if we jump back to the basics here a little bit, we have a platform to spring from. What is brand tracking, and what else should we be across to understand where brand tracking is heading?
Okay, so two questions. One
Yes.
is about what is brand tracking and what influence this area. That is a very good question. Okay, brand tracking in a certain sense always been the same since now a long time, and Mr. Millward and Mr. Brown created this activity. It was in the 70s, so very long time ago, based on two big business questions. The first business question is about the understanding how to strengthen the brand. And there is a very strong assumption behind that there is a link between the brand and the financial performance of the company. So the brands, if they are very strong, what does it mean? You sell more products, you sell more services, so it's tapping on the bottom line, on the top line, sorry, of the company, right? And at a higher price, and that's tapping on the bottom line, right? So there is a direct link between the brand and the P&L, and that's very, very important. So helping marketers to make their brands bigger and stronger is very important. The second business question is it's about the activation. Marketers spend a lot of money and time, of course, on activating the brands across time and across markets. And they really need to have feedback on that because they want to attract new audiences, they want to deliver new messages, they want to really understand if their campaign do their job in terms of perception, right? So that's the two main business questions brand tracking are covering. So now the second question that is a big one about what influence this activity today. We spend some time on that because, of course, the future of the brand tracking is linked to the future of the brand, and the future of brand is linked to the new environment. So I would say that there are three main factors. First one is really the multi-crisis environment, as you mentioned before, and why it's important, and I will come back on that in a second. It's affecting how the consumers are choosing the brand today, and that's a very important point. The second is we are experiencing a new paradigm, let's say like that, with the balance between global and local. I call it personally low ball, low for local and ball for global. I will elaborate in a second. And third is the impact that tech and digital world is having on activating the brand, but also distributing the brand. So coming back on the three factors, the first one, so it's really about the chaos that became a new normal, let's say like that. And that's true that the crisis started really strongly, or the sequence of crisis started with the pandemic and the COVID, but after that we have inflation, we have violence, crime, unemployment in many markets. So and of course climate change that is really, really strong and sensitive in many markets. So if you want to know more about that, type on your search engine what worries the world, Ipsos, and we have monthly data we can share that's open for everyone to understand in your market what is the most important factors. And we see that these different dimensions are evolving across time, and depending the culture, it's also different in each market. Second point is this paradigm low ball. So I'm sure that everyone here in the room have heard about the global paradigm in the 90s with the globalization. So the idea behind that was that when you are doing marketing, it was not only marketing, but let's focus on marketing. Global investment needed to be more important than local investment, right? So we had local adjustments, but mainly the global investment being on the global brands with global campaigns and so on. What we have observed since even before 5 years, 10 years, 10, 15 years, is that in many markets, local brands gained share against global brands. And main reason was that they were more relevant, understanding better the consumer realities than the global brands. So now it's the opposite. Local first, global second. So that's the reason why I call it global paradigm. Last, not least, tech, digital impact. We know the disruption that have been created in many sectors, continuing to do. In terms of brand marketing, first, digital media became the first touch point for many markets, and the biggest, and that's important. Everyone is talking about TikTok as the biggest media. Not everyone, and we don't know it will continue in the future, specifically in the US. But that's important that influencers became the new endorsers of the brand, and that's impacting a lot. Of course, new technology capabilities also contributed to create a new family of brands, the DTC brands, the direct-to-consumer brands. And some sectors are quite impacted by that. I'm thinking about the cosmetic, for instance, and also thinking about the e-commerce, and of course with the pandemic, that's something that's been accelerated in everywhere. The distribution is different, the channel is different, and the way the consumers are choosing the brands is different due to that. So that's more or less the answer to the big question about what influence our sector now.
Yes, so market researchers clearly do need to adapt. But how about their stakeholders, those for whom they're producing these insights for? What do they need to do to achieve brand success? So unlocking growth and bringing in a new order amidst all of this chaos.
Yeah, Michael, that's very important what you're saying. It's not just the market researchers who need to adapt themselves. The marketers really need to change a lot of things. And based on all these chaos, we cannot imagine that they can continue to do the marketing like they did during 50 or 70 years. So it must change, and that's the big point. We have worked a lot in Ipsos, and we have gathered more or less 50 experts globally on brand marketing. We worked thanks to our database, brand tracking, but also creative excellence, innovation. So we have gathered all these material to really understand what today is important for a brand to be successful. And we found that there are 3 areas or 3 keys to unlock success. Shaping expectations, integrating context, and acting with empathy are the ways to change the marketing tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit more on each of these dimensions. So first, the expectations, consumer expectations. But what is important, it's about shaping the expectations. what we learned thanks to the neuroscience work is that there is a very strong link between expectations and experience. Of course, experience have an influence on expectations, but expectations have a huge influence of experience. And that's something that is really easy to understand when, okay, I'm French. So let's take a brand on wine, Chateau Margaux, for instance. When you open a bottle of wine like Chateau Margaux, you have a certain level of expectations in terms of taste, in terms of quality, in terms of experience, right? And thanks to that, you will have this experience, right? Of course, if there is a huge gap, it's not working. But very often, your experience is more linked to the expectations than anything else. So shaping the expectations is very important. But it's not just the traditional, let's say, rational or emotional expectations. It's much beyond that. Let me give you an example about the social expectations. Let's take automotive. EV, as everyone is talking about, we have a match between Tesla and BYD, right? BYD Bring Your Dreams, that is the biggest Chinese brand on that. So when you are buying a Tesla, you are not just buying a car, right? You think about how people will see you using a Tesla, right? Or using a BYD, right? So the brand is giving you a certain level of status, right? So these expectations are also included in all the reason why you will choose a brand. So, and that's also valid in terms of channel of distribution. So shopping expectations. So that's all what it is about. So if we take two examples on brands who succeeded on that, I would say probably the best example in 2023 is what Mattel did with Barbie. They put a level of expectations for the brand is completely different now than before, right? I think everyone will agree on that. But there are some other examples, and I have one in mind that is really, really important and quite nice. So Ariel, I'm sure you know this brand from P&G. So in India, they did a great piece of work based on something that is important in India. It's starting by a question that is: do you think that laundry is only a woman's job? That is quite an interesting question, right? And there is a reality that average in India, women spend 5 hours doing household chores a day. Men only 19 minutes, right? So very big gap. And BBDO, the ad agency, created a great piece of work on that. It's one of the top most effective ads in India, according to Ipsos measurement. And and I invite you, of course, to discover this ad. And it's the story about not the laundry clean with Ariel, or the fact that a family can be happy because you can get your clothes dirty and after that it's fine. It's about the marriage. So the long-term relationship with a marriage. So that's really going beyond the traditional expectations. And when you see that, you say, okay, I would consider to buy this brand because it's really tapping in my belief, my values, right? So that's an example. Sorry, I'm a little bit long on that, but
Yeah,
I
you're
think it's
fine.
important to everyone. So second key to unlock the success of the brands, it's the context, integrating the context. You have two kinds of context, the micro context and the macro context. So let's start by the macro context. Everyone understands it's what's happening around us in the world. It's the big themes about environment, climate, social minorities. So of course, diversity, equality, inclusion is in there, transparency, governance, big causes, everything, right? And what we have seen, and that's quite new in our data on global trends, 80% of the world population the people, the consumers, think that it's possible for a brand to support a good cause and make money at the same time. And that's quite interesting because, okay, in the Anglo-Saxon environment, it seems to be normal. In the Latin world, it's a little bit less. So, and that's what we have seen. So integrating macro context is very important, but also micro context. What does it mean? It means is to be really close to the reality of what the people live and what's happening in their lives. And the COVID period changed quite a lot how the people are consuming the goods and the services, right? So it's a marketing that is more occasion-based marketing than a category-based marketing. And what the brands need to do now is to take a share of life of the consumer. So it's not market share that is more important. It's taking a share of life of the consumer. So two examples, one more tactical and one other that is more, let's say, strategic. So probably you know the story about Budweiser that faced an unexpected alcohol ban just 24 hours before the start of the Qatar World Cup. And that was, of course, a big element of context. And they found a way to create a piece of marketing, and you can, I don't know if it's still valid. I think you can find that with the hashtag Bring Home the Bud. And they created a campaign that is absolutely amazing with 1 billion of social search around the globe, thanks to that. And of course, the idea was that the fan had to bring back these beer and of course celebrating at home. So that was a great example of how to integrate context. Another one that is more, and as I'm based in Paris, and thinking about the big brands here, L'Oréal, that is really a huge one. When you take their signature today, and they changed last year, it's creating the beauty that moves the world. And that's quite interesting because it's really about integrating the macro context, but also the micro context in a certain sense. And they created a great campaign that started in France, but in many other markets, that is called Stand Up, to really push the idea that we need to stop the social harassment the women are having in public transportation. That's also a great way to integrate the big social themes.
Mm.
Last, acting with empathy. Empathy is something that is more and more important. It's a new way to engage the consumers. And what does it mean? Because empathy is having a lot of different definitions, and let's say Ipsos definition is about two things. One is really truly understanding what matters to the people, and second, how your brand can bring something to their life, right? And we have also a few examples, and I have been really impressed by an interview that gave Satya Nadella, the global CEO of Microsoft, when he had been asked what is his best inspiration for innovation, and of course innovation for Microsoft is something that is really big, and he said it's empathy. And he said all the people who are working on innovation in Microsoft must really understand the life of the consumers before thinking anything. So, and that's part of the empathy I mentioned. I read a paper yesterday on a brand. I don't know if you know Vaseline. It's a brand that is present, of course, in many markets. And in the US, they've decided to do something that is quite interesting, is to restore the faded murals. They have big murals in many towns in the US with paintings. And they decided to restore these murals because, of course, across time, they have been a little bit destroyed, and they are doing the analogy with the skin. If you are not taking care about your skin, also being in a certain sense destroyed, and they are also doing some donation around that. So it's of course on the community and the dark skin, of course, that is at stake. So that's also a very good example on how to act with empathy. Sorry, I've been a little bit long on that, but I think it's important.
No, it was an interesting point that you made around the share of life, which made me think of another thing important to brands as well, share of wallet. So if you look after the share of life, like the share of wallet will look after itself. They mutually, they work together.
Yeah, but that's interesting because, of course, share of wallet is not far, but share of life is a question about time. It's really how can you get more attention, of course, and attention we see that everywhere, but more seconds, more minutes, right? So that's let's say not easy to measure, honestly.
No, not at all.
But I think it's the spirit, right? How can we and coming back on the occasion I mentioned, the micro context. So if a brand is occupying an occasion, for sure you will get more time from the people, right? And that's the share of life.
That's right. Very cool. Interesting concepts. So far we've given a good portion of time looking at the environment we're in and the current state of brand tracking. But how does brand tracking need to evolve to move away from the chaos and back towards the order?
Yeah. So there are different things, and for me, one of the most important is the fact that when you take before, brand tracking was a very isolated piece of work in terms of research, and not connected a lot with other pieces of work, right? And that's really need to stop, and we need to integrate the data from the brand tracking with a lot of other sources of data, right? So these connections between the different sources of data is critical in terms of elevating the level of insights. So of course, there are some other pieces of insight that can be connected with the brand tracking. So for the services, it's very important, and we experience that quite a lot, to have, of course, customer experience data and brand tracking data, and see the links between the two. But it's going beyond that. When you think about the relevance of the KPIs we are delivering on the brand tracking, and the impact on the sales or the shares or whatever, right? So this kind of data can be also linked together to ensure that when we are selecting KPIs on the brand tracking, they are linked to the market share, for instance, right? So integrating the brand tracking data with a multi-source of data is really important. So, but I'm also thinking about another important source of data, that is social media. For many categories, social media data are very important, because understanding what the people think or believe on a brand or category is one thing, but understanding also what they say about the brand, and that's really the social media, is another thing. And it's another dimension. And you have different pattern, and understanding both is really creating more value for the marketers. There is another big thing, that is the accessibility. We know that with the brand tracking, there are many people who, in our clients, who wants to have access to that to take decisions. So it's not just a CMI thing for inside community. Of course, all the brand stakeholders are interested to have access to this data. But beyond that, so many part of the organization of a company asking for part of the data that are coming from brand tracking. So the way to or the let's say making more accessible all the data is something that is really important and beyond, let's say, CMI and marketing stakeholders.
Mm. No, that's right. And I guess you mentioned the think and say, and in terms of the data to connect that up with the brand tracking data, and you briefly mentioned the sales as well, and that's more the do. So you've got the think,
Absolutely.
say, and do that you're bringing all together.
Absolutely, you have this triangle, okay, about what the people think, know about the brand, what they do, of course, what they say. So you can play with that a lot, and the brand tracking must be a big component on that. Yes.
Absolutely. So Ipsos works with some of the largest brands in the world. What are some of the concrete things that you're putting into place to help guide brands through this chaos?
Yeah, so there is one thing that is, of course, really important is the dashboard, and I was mentioning the accessibility. So we have a great platform that is called Harmony. I think many of the people here in the room and know this platform from InfoTools. InfoTools have been acquired by Ipsos 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. And this platform is recognized by the clients as really one of the best in class, and it's a great platform to put, of course, the brand tracking data, but also to connect with other source of data. There are many clients who are having a data lake, so we need to feed these data lake with our data. So Harmony is a great platform, and that's something that is really tangible for the clients to really increase the accessibility of what we are doing. So that's for the platform. There is also something that is important is now the new, let's say, ways of measuring things, right? So I said before that the marketers cannot continue to do the same things like they did before, but it's valid for us as well. And we have created a new set of indicators to ensure that we can capture these new reality. We have also created new design in terms of brand tracking. So we have created a design that is called contextual brand tracking, that is really focused on the occasion based and not the category based. So you can always have the link between the two, but the funnel and all these approaches are more based on the occasions than on the category, right? And the fact that the consumers and the people are selecting brands that are really in a framework of occasion is creating data that are very different. We are also now providing new ESG indicators that can be put in the brand tracking, but also in some ad hoc piece of work. And we are developing a lot of other analytics and advisory for the clients. So there is a new range, let's say, of solutions that are coming and that are really concrete, working together on measuring the performance of the brand.
No, for sure. It's an interesting time to bring in brand tracking. That's for certain. There's a lot of change, even from a technology perspective as well, that's going on. So there's chaos and innovation too. So you have to travel carefully. So.
Yeah, and just thinking about something that might bring more chaos or more order, depending on how we take it, is and that's really exciting, is the new Gen AI tech capabilities. And for me, it's really something that is really exciting today. Of course, everyone is talking about that, but working on that. And within Ipsos, we have started to work very, very strongly there, and in brand tracking as well. And we are not, let's say, it's not done completely, but we are working on different areas, like, okay, how can we challenge a proposal to have better quality on what we are proposing? How can we craft a questionnaire in a different way thanks to these new capabilities? How can we also deliver automated insight generated by AI? We already do that in some part of what we do in brand tracking, but really being more systematic on for instance, writing structural analysis. And all these fields are absolutely great. And why I'm saying it's not just chaos is because human will make the difference, right? So it's a combination between new technology capabilities, but also what the people will do with that, and what us as researchers will do with that to help the end users, the brand marketers, to take better decisions. So yeah, it's between chaos and order, or new order.
True. So, I mean, it made me think about a lot of people when they talk about AI, they say, oh, you need to have a human in the loop. But what you were mentioning there, it was almost as if you have an AI in the loop. So like human thought, creativity, curiosity, that's something extremely difficult to replicate. Not saying it's impossible. I don't know if it's theoretically impossible at this point in time, but having AI to test your assumptions that you're making and to challenge what you're saying is a really good way to think about it.
Yeah, but there are many ways to use AI, and the question is really what are the most interesting ones in the sense on the value that will be provided by that.
Yeah.
I think that as a human, we can be happy to be challenged by kind of a collective intelligence, and where it's coming from, that is the main point. And within Ipsos, we are very fortunate to have a lot of databases in many. We have a lot of data, and honestly, do we consider that we are using the best of all these data? Absolutely not today. It's still a big challenge, but thanks to Gen AI, we might get on a over level on that, and still the people will play with that, but Gen AI will help us to have something that a feedback, let's say, or that will come from what we are doing since now decades in Ipsos, that is interviewing people and understanding them. So that's something is in the heart of all the things we are developing on Gen AI. So that's really fascinating.
Absolutely, and that sounds like something quite exciting in the world of brand tracking and understanding people. So looking forward to seeing what comes of that space.
Oh yeah, I think many things will come soon and later, of course. But that's probably we are living okay, difficult moments. Honestly, we cannot say that it's happiness everywhere, but also some very significant excitement as well.
Very true. Well, Benoit, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
It was a pleasure, Michael.
And to everyone else who has listened, thank you also for joining in. If you have liked what you've heard, feel free to reach out to Benoit and the team at Ipsos, to subscribe to the podcast, share it with others, or even leave a review on your podcast, YouTube platform, or wherever you heard this today. Until next time, thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.
Thanks a lot.